All right, so we've made and chilled our sourdough crust for making galettes, and now it's time to roll it out and bake the galette. So I've got my tools and dough here. I've got a bench scraper. I like to use a measuring tape to get about the right diameter of the dough, a rolling pin, a T-ball, which we'll use to dust the flour, and a sheet pan lined with parchment paper. I'm going to take out one of the dough. I divided the dough in half and chilled it overnight. It's ready to roll. Go ahead and flour our surface. I'm also going to flour our rolling pin a little bit. Can't remember where I saw this, some baker on a video using the T-ball for a flour sifter. It's brilliant. All right, I'm just going to start to roll out the Now here's the part that always makes me nervous. I'm going to transfer the dough onto our sheet pan without breaking it. So I'm going to use the rolling pin actually as a helper. Let's see if I can do this without breaking the dough apart. Kind of rolling as I loosen it. Get it free and then carefully lay it down. Sheet pan. Not too bad. Stayed in one piece. Got a few extra little slivers of dough. Not too bad. All right, now we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, I just realized I should have put it on the parchment paper, not inside the sheet pan, because the sheet pan is only about 12 inches wide. So we'll do our work, we'll fold the galette, and then I'll transfer the parchment back to the pan. All right, I've got all my other mise en place ready. All the other ingredients we're going to use to make our galette. So first thing I'm going to do is put down a center of some brown sugar, not too much. Most of the sweetness is going to come from the fruits, so no need to make this overly sweet. About 2 tablespoons of brown sugar in the center, and I'm going to work in the much as I can in the center of it because we're going to be folding the edges over. Make our galette. Next thing I like to put down before I put the fruit is some sort of crushed nut. In this case I've got pecans. I also like using hazelnuts, almonds, etc. But this recipe I've had pecans on hand, so I'll do that. You can find the recipe for how I like to prepare nuts, which is usually soaked and sometimes roasted, depending on the nut. And that neutralizes some of the anti-nutrients, as they're called, and makes the nuts more digestible. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is put in my fruit, and because this is autumn, early winter, we've got persimmons. So I've sliced them up, and I'm just going to put them in as best I can, as artfully as I know how, which is not very artful if you know my cooking style. I prefer more of a rustic, practical, delicious, but not necessarily pretty cooking. And these persimmons are really ripe, so I'm pretty happy about that. They're going to melt nicely during the bake. And like I said, I'm not a pastry chef by any stretch, so if you're laughing at my technique, it's probably a good thing. Some of the ones that are like broken, I'm going to kind of put in the middle or underneath, and I'll reserve the intact ones for the outside, and also take those smaller pieces and kind of fill things in. So just kind of got to work it. This is about a pound of fruit, by the way. Maybe a little over a pound. All right, so that's looking pretty good. I might widen the ring here. Got some pieces I can put in the middle. All right, this looks good. The only thing better than a fresh, soft, in-season persimmon is one that's baked into a galette. All right, so it looks pretty good. Now I'm gonna take my bench scraper and just carefully fold over the edges here. And so we have about 1 to 2 inches of extra dough on the perimeter that we're going to use to fold in. And then as you go, you're going to probably need to do some kind of folds, crimps, I should say. Again, I'm not a pastry chef. So I don't have all the terminology. And try to avoid tears if you can, because tears is where you can get leakage and all the liquid and the gooey stuff as it bakes. And if you do have a tear, you can borrow some dough, let's say right here for example, and if you find a little crack or tear, just get it into a nice shape. You don't see any other cracks, but they will become apparent as it bakes. Alright, so this is looking good. Next step is to put a little bit of egg wash around on the crust, and that will firm it up a little bit, but it'll also allow it to brown, a nice brown color. So I just have 1 egg that's beaten. I'm just going to liberally apply it with a brush to the outside. finally, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of raw cane sugar over the top. Again, not trying to add too much sweetness, but it'll add a nice little finish. Okay, that's good. And now, got to transfer it onto our pan and throw it in the oven. Away we go. Looking pretty good. Here it is, hot and fresh out the oven. Just gotta let it cool and we'll give it a taste.